NFL free agency is here and gone. Well, at least in the eyes of March. But what is going on with Aaron Rodgers? We're going to dive into it right here on the 32 Blueprint. All right, look at us. We are here for the 32 Blueprint, the first show of the ultimate NFL experience. I'm Christian Rauh, Nick Marovets. We are going to bring you NFL content every single day. Super excited for this. This is going to be fun. We've been building up this show for quite some time. And now that we are finally here, Nick, we've got to dive in, but this is going to be an absolute adventure. You ready for this?
Dude, I'm so excited. Obviously, everybody loves the NFL, and just talking about it every day, that's a blessing in disguise, really. So I'm pumped. Let's just jump into the biggest story. Everybody's talking about it. Everybody's thinking about it. Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah. Aaron Rodgers to me is just completely wild. It's just a wild scenario. Like, what is going to happen to him? Where is he going to go? Where is he? Is he going to go to Minnesota? Is he going to go where Brett Favre has, is he going to follow the Brett Favre path? Is he going to go to Pittsburgh? Is he going to go to the Giants? To me, the Giants is a weird one. I don't understand why the Giants are even on there. Maybe just for the the factor that, they don't have a quarterback. But then again, we have to think about this. Aaron Rodgers, great quarterback. Don't get me wrong. Future Hall of Famer, all of that. How old is Aaron Rodgers? He's pretty old, Nick.
He's pretty old.
He didn't have the best year last year. He didn't have the best career in New York. People aren't flying off the shelves to go get Aaron Rodgers. So, although three teams apparently seem to be waiting for him to make a decision, are you satisfied that if Aaron Rodgers goes to one of these teams, they're an immediate contender, especially the Steelers or the Vikings?
Actually, yes, I am, because in general, the Jets organization is completely cursed by the football gods. And I think that's what's held him back. I think he was, back-to-back MVPs right before leaving Green Bay. So we know that he's got it in him. He's an absolute gunslinger and one of the most accurate passers of the football of all time. And so we didn't see it pan out in New York. Obviously 2 years, one of them completely negated by the Achilles injury. So really only 1 year. And who expects 1 year to completely turn around a program, on top of the fact that it is the Jets, who are just, that picture is literally the football gods, in my opinion. So I think when he goes to a better situation, if it's the Vikings, and I know it doesn't make a ton of sense, but the weapons they have, you can't tell me that he wouldn't be able to find success there. It's a great team.
No, I'm with you. I think that it depends where he goes. And obviously, even though if he's going to want to play, do you think he's preparing this offseason? We're seeing pictures of him on a beach, right? We don't even know exactly what he's planning on doing. Now, for the record, was this staged? This was staged, right?
I did hear about that. Some were saying that that's a staged picture. I wouldn't put it past Rodgers. But also, why would that be the picture that you stage? That's not a great picture. I don't know. That's play.
Prepping for his next Netflix documentary or something. But ooh, I'm with you. Let's dig into these three teams and just think about where he could go. I think the least likely spot for him to go, or at least in the eyes of being a contender, because you got to think that he's going to want to be on a contender. It's his last hurrah. I heard
doesn't have very many years.
Right. I think it was Rich Eisen a couple weeks ago having this conversation during actual free agency. So really just last week. And he brought up that out of all the quarterbacks, and they're talking about Josh Allen and his MVP and how he has the most pressure and stuff. But he said, no, I think it's guys like Aaron Rodgers to have the most pressure because they're on their twilight. It's one season and done if they're lucky, if they have the opportunity. If they don't have to carry an American flag out on Monday Night Football, they might be able to get a full 17 games and find a way to compete and make it to the postseason. One team that I don't think will make the postseason, whether Aaron Rodgers is there or not, that's the New York Giants. Look at this projected offensive weapons you have. Tyrone Tracy, don't get me wrong, a good up-and-comer, but him and Devin Singletary don't move the needle for me at running back. They absolutely don't. Malik Neighbors is great, but he can't do it all himself. Darius Slayton, this is a wild one to me. Awesome wide receiver, but did you see the contract they just resigned him to? It was almost the identical contract that they could have signed Saquon Barkley last year, and they gave that money to Darius Slayton the next year. So for the record, Giants fans, I don't think that you will ever be able to let down the fact that you let Saquon Barkley walk to your NFC East rival, win a Super Bowl after saying you wouldn't afford to pay him, and then you give that money to Darius Slayton the next year. Wandale Robinson, Theo Johnson. I mean, none of these names move the needle for me. Like even Neighbors, like they don't. It's not a team that is ready to win now, especially in the NFC East division that has the Eagles, that has the Commanders. I mean, this team could easily finish third because the Cowboys are crap. But this is a team that with Rodgers, what's the best? 7 wins, maybe? Like he's right back where he was with the Jets.
It's the exact same scenario, and I love Malik Neighbors, but he just can't do it all by himself. And so this one to me is puzzling that he would, because at the end of the day, this is like the first time that Aaron Rodgers has been a free agent. So he gets to kind of decide. Obviously, there has to be both parties have to agree, but at the end of the day, he can kind of pick. So why would he pick the Giants? It's puzzling. I don't even know why we're talking about this. Like, why is this even on the conversation board compared to the Steelers, who I think is the most realistic destination, and the Vikings to fulfill the prophecy? Both of those I can kind of see, but like, what? The Giants? I really don't get that one.
This to me, it's the fact that you remember Hard Knocks and the GM, Joe Sheen, whatever his name is for the Giants. His son was like telling him, "Hey, you need to take Jalen Daniels." Obviously, that would have been a great pick if the Giants would have been able to do that. What we just saw with the Commanders in the NFC Championship game, maybe that they're just so desperate to get some sort of quarterback production because they know that their job is completely on the line. But if that's the case, I mean, you might be best off trading for 1-1 and drafting up the Cam Ward, which we are going to dig into NFL draft content on this show like no other. Isn't it crazy to feel that we are just over a month away until the NFL draft? I think we're starting the show at the perfect time, by the way. Speaking of Aaron Rodgers to the Steelers, obviously there are other quarterbacks in the mix as well. Russell Wilson was the Steelers quarterback last year, at least for the majority of the second half. Justin Fields went on to replace Aaron Rodgers on the New York Jets. I think that might turn out good. I think there's a really low risk, high reward system for Justin Fields with the Jets. I think, we'll see what happens there. The Jets are still a mess of a franchise, but the Pittsburgh Steelers, this weapons look a lot better. Obviously, just trading for DK Metcalf. We'll see if George Pickens wants to stick around. I know there's a lot of conversation, rumors, nothing confirmed about maybe him wanting to demand a trade after this, which I don't understand why. But he was not one of the players that welcomed DK Metcalf to the Steelers. That was one of the reports that we saw on the Twitter X machine, right? So we'll see what happens there. But Jalen Warden, they just moved on from Najee Harris. He's going to the Chargers. So running back could be a little bit of a question. Tight end's a great tight end, probably one of the most underrated tight ends. Aaron Rodgers could get something going with this team. This was a playoff team last year. We could see what happens if Aaron Rodgers went to the Steelers. We don't know what's going on with Russell Wilson either. He might be a Cleveland Brown for all we know. But at the end of the day, Aaron Rodgers to the Steelers, this one would make sense.
This one, it'd be interesting to see how this would play out because you mentioned obviously like Najee leaving. That's kind of going to take away from that ground and pound, really tough Steelers mentality. Not that Jalen Warren can't do that, but you know what I mean? Kind of been the guy.
Different type of running back, yeah.
Yeah. And so I would wonder is there a chance that Tomlin kind of switches it up and goes with an air raid with Aaron Rodgers and Metcalf and Pickens? If you're getting them the ball, they're less likely to be fighting people, so that's going to help as well. And then Pat Freiermuth, an absolute dog at tight end. Like, they have the weapons to throw the ball, and if they bring in Rodgers, like I do think that would be a successful plan of action. But would Tomlin do that? I'd be curious to see how that plays out. But to me, this is the most makes sense for Rodgers, makes sense for the Steelers. Like, obviously, Rodgers is a very good quarterback. They've got the team. They're not necessarily a quarterback away, but it's a piece in the right direction. If he's going to play football again, I think it's with the Steelers, but I hope it's with the Vikings.
I think the Steelers makes the most logical sense for the need of the organization, and then obviously where Rodgers fits in his career. Because although the Minnesota Vikings, although they were a great team last year, Sam Darnold led them to a surprising record. They were outstanding in really until the postseason, until Darnold kind of wrecked it
Classic.
towards the end there, which is crazy. He would have made probably a lot more money if he would have
Oh,
played well in those last couple of weeks. But Minnesota's in a great spot. Their receivers are great. But what happens with JJ McCarthy, right?
you're right.
But
That's the
of
question.
but here's the biggest elephant in the room. Not even JJ McCarthy. The biggest elephant in the room, as we mentioned before. Will the prophecy be
Yes.
fulfilled? Will it be
Yes.
fulfilled? Will it? I mean, will it happen? Brett
Dude.
Favre, Green Bay, New York Jets, Minnesota Vikings. I remember. I'm old enough to remember this. There was a Madden cover that they put Brett Favre on the cover, and it was initially him as a Packer, and
Mm.
he signs with the Jets that year or gets traded. I can't remember if he was traded or signed. And you had to get an extra little insert of him as a Jet to slide in front of your
Oh,
Madden cover. So you had the Green Bay Packer, you had the New York Jet. In this case, would the prophecy be fulfilled? Would you be able to get him to the Minnesota Vikings? It would be really funny for it to happen. But when you look at these weapons, I mean, there are no better weapons out of these three teams
this is
than what Minnesota. This is a loaded team with Aaron Rodgers as your quarterback. If he gives the same type of production that he had in 2024 with the Jets, which with the exception of Garrett Wilson really didn't have too many weapons, right? I mean, the running back
right.
game is pretty solid, but nothing
Well,
great.
Brees
Aaron
Hall
Jones,
from Iowa State, yeah, freaking
okay,
dog. So
all
we're
right,
gonna
you're right.
either way.
He knows about Aaron Jones. He's played with Aaron Jones before. That was
Yep.
a good tandem. Justin Jefferson, I mean, he's probably wide receiver one in the league. I mean, that's hard to compete against, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Jordan Addison, great. Jalen Naylor had a great year last year, and TJ Hawkinson, a fantastic tight end if he stays healthy. This is a team that if you put an Aaron Rodgers on, this team is a Super Bowl contender once again. The biggest question is, what does that do for JJ McCarthy in his
Mm.
career path? Are they sold on JJ McCarthy? If they are they willing to have him take another back seat now to a Hall of Famer? Let's keep that in
Yes.
mind. But are they willing to do that and can maybe sever that tie with JJ McCarthy? Because they put a whole bunch of stock in him last year, drafting him in top 10.
Yeah. No, it's interesting. So if he goes to Minnesota, does he start or does he go kind of behind JJ as the veteran backup? I don't know if Rodgers would do that.
I don't think
That's the
Rodgers is going to
first
be I don't think he's going to be a backup.
right. And that's the first thing you think of at these guys at the end of their career, like Joe Flacco backing up Anthony Richardson last year. It's kind of it's a role that they can play on a team and mentor. I don't think that will be Rodgers. So then, right, if you take that angle out of it, he's now the starter. Okay. And look at what Jordan Love is doing right now after sitting behind Aaron Rodgers. So there is the argument that Minnesota could benefit from JJ McCarthy learning from Aaron Rodgers, him being on the field and JJ sitting. But I just don't know the way that they've talked about JJ. It sounds to me like they are like, get this guy on the field. He's the future. Like we're all bought in on him. So I I don't think that the Vikings makes the most sense out of these teams just from that standpoint. I wish it would happen. I wish the prophecy would be fulfilled, but and they are such a good team. So like they could really make some noise really quickly. But and the question is, where will he go? Because we don't know. But theoretically, I think it has to be the Steelers. Just both sides kind of need each other in that one.
Yeah, I think the Steelers are the best fit. I think the Vikings are the most dangerous fit. I think the Giants are the biggest questionable fit for sure. If
The
he
question
goes to
is,
the Giants,
if the Giants offer him the amount of money that's being thrown around of what he is asking for, does he just kind of take the money? And he's like he's made the most money maybe outside of Kirk Cousins
yeah,
as a quarterback.
absolute
So
theft. The
yeah,
robber
like
of the league, Kirk Cousins.
like does he need that? I don't. That's what I want to know. Like if the Giants are like, we will give you $150 million for a 2-year contract, would he just basically sell out? Because he's not going to win a Super Bowl with New York. He's just not.
I mean, if he gets 75 million AAV, I mean, yeah, absolutely. I don't think that's happening, but I think the numbers honestly probably be. I mean, the Giants would have to overpay. There's no doubt that if he's going to
Yes.
the Giants, it is a money thing. And you can talk about him being comfortable because he has a house in New Jersey or New York or wherever the case may be, and maybe he just wants to stick around because it's his last couple of years in the league. You could
True. Yeah. Moving
you could
sucks.
You could, yeah, there's no doubt about that. You can say that. There's no pizza and beer in the world that friends like to help you move anymore, although he doesn't have to worry about that. But, you know, there's that place, but you're going to have to overpay if you're the Giants. There's no doubt about that.
Mhm.
Now, the Steelers and the Vikings, you don't probably have to overpay. You have another couple cards in your hand, even though they are dwindling down, even though Russell Wilson might be playing somewhere else. You lost Justin Fields. I mean, one of these teams are probably going to end up with Jameis Winston when it's all said and done. So,
I
you know,
hope so.
what is going to happen with this? That's the biggest question. If I had to make a prediction now, though, I think he's a Pittsburgh Steeler when it's all said and done. How about you?
I think so as well. I just think it makes the most sense. But like we've been taught, all of this is under the assumption that he is going to play. So
Right.
I mean, it's like maybe not. Maybe he'll be done. I don't think he will. And obviously I don't know him personally, so I can't be like this guy, he's not this kind of guy. But I just think the Steelers makes too much sense compared to the other two.
You mean you're not doing those real dark retreats with Aaron Rodgers on the weekends? Like that's not your
I've been
go-to?
trying to get the invite, dude. He won't send them to me. So if somebody knows a guy to get me in, I will go. But for now,
You're being
I'm
left
not
in the
lucky
dark
enough.
for all the wrong reasons, my dude. You're being left in the
Yeah,
dark for all the wrong reasons.
it's a bunch of crap. Not gonna lie.
Let's dig into another topic here because there are plenty to talk about in this NFL offseason. Obviously, just a few days out of NFL free agency, which I mean, free agency is still going on, but
Yes.
there's like this 2-day window where there's legal tampering period. It was March 10th to March 12th. And that's really where free agency happens. I mean, once the
Mhm.
12th hits, almost every free agent has had some sort of destination. Now, as we just mentioned with Rodgers, we still have a couple. Russell Wilson, there are a couple still out in the air, but the majority, I'd probably say 90% of free agents that are going to sign and at least make an impact for next season have already found their destination. So, with that being said, I feel like we can have a good conversation about who are the winners and some losers in this one. And we should dig into some winning ones. And I see you got a little flag behind you right here. And I would say
Yeah.
they are a solid winner in the free agency. What would you say about those New England Patriots?
I do think the Patriots are making all the right moves right now. There is some kind of outcry for more offensive moves. But at the end of the day, obviously the one that everyone kind of leans towards, like the big signing, was Milton Williams. And I think he'll make an enormous impact on this team. And across the board, I saw something on Twitter, and I don't know how accurate it is. And this is also a couple days old, but the Patriots spent like almost 223 million in free agency. And so that was kind of what we expected last year from Gerard Mayo. They talked about him saying, "Oh, we've got all this money," and then it just didn't ever really pan out. Seems like Vrabel's kind of making the right moves. A little bit of a defensive heavy focus, unless you consider Mac Hollins maybe a wide receiver one. But I don't hate that. In my philosophy, which I'm not a head coach, but it's always been to like pick up the guys that have been in the league and we know that they're legit. And then you can go from there. On offense, Drake May is obviously the guy moving forward, and you take a chance on maybe a wide receiver, an area the Patriots have been lacking heavily for a few years. But your defense, if it's going to be solid the way it was last year, you just don't need to score that many points. So I actually don't hate those moves, and I do think that this was kind of the biggest win, not only for the Patriots in recent years in free agency, but in the league as a whole. Who would you pick over the Patriots right now? They made a ton of noise.
Yeah, I think there's one team that rivals them, but I think the Patriots are definitely one of the winners for sure in free agency this year. Speaking of these Patriots, you talk about Mac Hollins. I mean, he had a great year in Buffalo. I mean, he showed a lot of production with the Bills. $8.4 million deal for 2 years. That's not a bad deal at all for him. I
No.
don't know if he should be a wide receiver one, and I don't know if
No,
you're
no,
going
come
to
on.
get that. I think it's something like a 3 or a 4 if you could get him to be that. That's a solid production. I mean,
I
Drake
look at Mac.
May.
Mac is a veteran. It's kind of his role, like we were talking about the quarterbacks.
He's a guy that you can give reliable targets to, and you're going to be able to get a throwing, good throws to. And when you have a young quarterback like Drake May, who's trying to be more comfortable in the system, you had a lot of young wide receivers on that team last year. So if
Yeah,
you get someone that has shown consistency. I think that's a really good feeling. I like what they did in the trenches. I really did. I
I
like what
do.
they added with Morgan Moses. I like what they did with Milton Williams. Now, I think Milton Williams is probably the biggest risk, although it's one of my favorite free agent signings. He was great with his pressure rate with the Eagles last year, but look who was around him as well, right? There
Yeah.
was a lot of players, a lot of great players around him as well. Can that pressure rate stay up? Now, 4 years, $104 million. I really hope so.
Hope
That
so.
was really the only big deal they signed, though, with the exception of
Well,
like,
Carlton Davis, I didn't mention him, but that was a great snag from the Lions. The corner there, 3 years, 60 million. Not quite on the same plane as Milton, but that's another one. And then you've got Gonzo. I think it's Christian Gonzalez on the other side. Like the
yeah,
secondary could be just unbelievable for these guys. And like, yeah, I just think over across the board, excluding offense, they did a very good job, and they made some moves on offense. Don't get me wrong, but the philosophy they were talking about was let's get guys through the free agency, and then we'll draft for potential. We don't have to draft for needs, and I think that was you can kind of see that outside of the wide receiver position in the moves they made.
yeah, and the running back room is loaded in the NFL draft. I think there's some decent wide receivers as well. A couple from your Iowa State for sure that would look really good in the Patriots uniform next season. There's a lot of really fun pieces on the offensive side that they could build up in the draft. And I think that Mike Vrabel's doing this right. He's grabbing some veteran guys on the defense. He's a defensive minded coach. He's got to get that side of the ball right first. And then he can focus on Drake May and the rest of them. They have their quarterback. They got to be able to protect him. I think adding guys like Moses and they signed another guard as well is great. We talked about Carlton Davis. Did you see his opening press conference? He was coming in and they were like excited to be here. And he's
Oh,
like,
I did see
he's like,
that.
no applause. Like, what is it? It
Yes.
was so awkward. It was so awkward. So hopefully that doesn't change anything with the team and everything. But Drake May, we talk about the offensive tackle and the weapons. He was terrible when it came to being protected last year. Only a
Oh,
21.5% pressure to rate sack rate. I mean, that's huge. If you look at that, that's ranked 43rd in the NFL last season. First off, I don't even have to explain it to you. There's only 32 teams in the
yep.
NFL. If you look at the title of our show there, Nick. So if you're after 32, that's a
It's
problem.
not a good
You know, it's
sign.
not a good sign at all. I mean, but the completion rate, that's pretty good, 66%. That's about league average, a little bit higher if I remember. So the potential is there. And I think we've all known this. I think there was a huge debate of him possibly going 1-1 last year for the longest time. I think you
Yeah.
could make the debate for all three of the quarterbacks who were drafted last year. I think all three of those quarterbacks are going to have very good careers. They just have to be built around. Speaking of
Hmm.
that, that's what I want to get into next. And I think the winner of free agency, in my opinion, is the Chicago Bears. I really like what Chicago did. I think they did even more. Now, they were in a way better situation to begin with than New England was. Their
Yes.
defense looked a little better. They had the offensive weapons. They have DeAndre Swift. They have some great wide receivers that they picked up last year as well. Obviously, Caleb Williams, he had some terrible pressure sack rates as well last year, but they built in the trenches. They built exactly what was needed to help that team move to the next step. Ryan Poles, to me, is on the hot seat. I know that he just drafted a franchise quarterback. He just brought in Ben Johnson. I don't think those two are going to be tied together. I don't think Ben Johnson and Ryan Poles are going to be tied together. I think Ryan Poles is on the hot seat, especially after some of these moves that he made. Brings Jonah Jackson in from the LA Rams. Love that trade. Brings Joe Thuney in from the Kansas City Chiefs. I mean, that one could
Hmm.
backfire because if the Kansas City Chiefs are moving on from you, that might mean that there's a decline moving down. At least what we've seen over the last couple of years, Kansas City knows when to move on from players. But the name is exciting, and hopefully he can step up. Drew Dahlman signed a 3-year contract, probably the best center picked up in the free agency world. Grady Jarrett coming over. I mean, it was just a lot of really good pieces being added by the Chicago Bears in the trenches. And to
Yes.
me, not only are the Bears the biggest winner, but Caleb Williams is the biggest winner of free agency.
Well, it's clear that they had one focus going in free agency, and it was to bolster up their line. And I love that. We talked about Drake May and his struggles with pressure, just having so much pressure. But Caleb Williams, it was like insane what he was going through. So for them to target that and to be able to put Caleb in a position to win and to succeed, like make plays, that's exactly what you need to do with a guy like that. Otherwise, you kind of risk just losing the talent, right? Kind of wasting that away. So I like that they did that at the time that they did, and I like a lot of these pickups as well. And then obviously Ben Johnson and what he's the new kind of mindset towards this team. I'll be very interested to see. The Bears should be able to make noise, and it looks like it could be another year of the NFC North just being an absolute powerhouse of 4 teams. But the Bears are the Bears at the end of the day. So I don't, I mean, they got to beat that.
Is the Bears an NFC contender right now? NFC
Right
North
now?
contender. Let's go division.
Well, look at the rest of the
Vikings,
division.
Lions, Packers.
Yeah, it a lot of it depends on, does Aaron Rodgers go to the Vikings? Because then you're gambling on a rookie quarterback if he doesn't. And the Lions missing both their coordinators, like I could see a fall off there. So I would say the Bears are a contender, but it's an outside chance just because it's probably going to be them. The Packers will be good like they are every single year, and then there will be someone that we're like, oh my gosh, who expected JJ McCarthy to be the greatest quarterback this, like something like that will happen. So, but I do think the Bears can make noise. It's just that they got to beat themselves first.
Okay, how about a playoff contender? Do you think they can make the playoffs right now? I think they can.
I think they could make the playoffs. I haven't looked at their schedule super close, so I don't know exactly what they're up against, but or what the strength schedule looks like either. I'm sure that's what you're pulling up.
Released yet. I think the opponents are released, but not who when they play. So,
when they play.
Yeah.
And
we'll have to see what happens there.
Yeah. Timing is actually
it's March. It's March. It's before the NFL draft. I know we have plenty of time, and they have a lot of things to move, and we'll see what happens there. But to me, it's interesting. I think that the Bears are such an interesting franchise. Obviously, what we've seen happen over the past few seasons with them. I mean, what they did to get Trubisky. I mean, the last decade has been an absolute headache for them. If Caleb Williams doesn't work out, if Caleb Williams doesn't work out, I mean, how you have to feel for this fan base. You absolutely have to feel for this fan base. But I think that it's going to work great, and I think that they're finding a way to build around him. They already have some good weapons. The trenches was a main focus. I want to see what their draft looks like, but I think they're on the right path. Let's go to right paths now, and let's play a little this or that, because I think that's a great way to end this show right here. And let's go and let's play 2 rounds of this or that today. First one, let's do who is on a better path to success. And we'll tie these 2 teams together because they are in tandem with a certain trade, with a certain new coach that now is with both organizations. And, there's just a lot of really comparisons for this one.
Yes.
So who will have a better path to success this season and moving forward? The Las Vegas Raiders or the Seattle Seahawks? Nick?
I'm going to take the Raiders. I am preying on the downfall of the Chiefs. And then the rest of that division is obviously the Broncos and the Chargers. The Chargers are going to be a good 9-10 win team, but nothing too crazy. They're the Chargers every single year. Believe it or not, they haven't changed their name. But the Broncos could make noise. But looking at the I'm blanking, but the NFC West, right? That division is tough. It's going to be a hard one for the Seattle Seahawks to win. And I look at the moves that Seattle made. To me, it was like all lateral moves. And then they released kind of the core guys in Lockett and Metcalf, and then you laterally move at quarterback. To me, they're a good team, but I don't think that's going to be. I don't think they'll be a lot better this year based on the moves we've seen. Of course, now they're different strategies and vibes of the locker, like all of that stuff can change, and they could. I mean, shoot, they can still go undefeated. Believe it or not, they haven't lost. So. But between the 2, I am leaning Raiders, but I'm not confident in that. I'm not gonna lie. What do you think?
That's a huge step. I mean, it's a huge step because if you think about last year, Vegas was 4-13. Seattle was a 10-win football team last year. I mean, they were just a game away from really a tiebreaker away from making the postseason with Geno Smith. And if you think it's a lateral move, I mean, you have to think that they can be right back in it. Now, I don't think that some of those were lateral moves. I do think that they did take a step backwards. But I think what Ben McDonald is doing is he's trying to get the Pete Carroll out of the Seattle Seahawks organization. I mean, they changed the pictures on the wall. He's moving on from some of these leaders that was in the Pete Carroll era with Metcalf and Lockett and Geno. He's trying to make it his. So to me, I think Seattle is on the right step forward, but I do think we're going to see regression. So if we had to say the path to success, long term, I think Seattle wins the deal. I think initially they might have a better record than Vegas because of just the amount of skill that's on there. But I do like the Raiders. I do like the Raiders, what they're doing. I mean, Pete Carroll has proven that he can do what needs to be done. The ownership of Vegas seems like they're ready to spend some money. I think they're ready to finally become a contender again. You got to think they're in a right spot in the NFC West with the Chiefs eventually moving down. I mean, your Patriots dynasty finally faded at some point. They'll probably come back into fruition soon. But you got to think that the AFC West now is the time to shine for a team to step up. The Broncos just made the postseason last year. Can the Raiders be that next team and not be the Chargers? We'll see what happens. But I think Geno Smith's the right move for them. They have another high draft pick. Can they add some weapons? I'm going with the Raiders as well. Although I might have bamboozled you at first thinking I was going to go to Seattle.
I thought for sure you were on Seattle.
I'm excited to see what Ben McDonald can do with this team, with his team now, right? Because there's a lot of interesting moves that need to happen. But I think that there's no doubt that if you lose the type of leadership that you had with Tyler Lockett and Geno Smith, DK Metcalf even, I mean, this offense is going to look completely different. The NFC West, the Rams are going to be nasty. I think San Francisco, no doubt, is taking a step back because of all the players they lost. But I do think there's going to be some sort of regression in this one. If I'm a betting man in this one, I think the Rams run away with the NFC West. If I had to say today, if I had to bet,
I think that makes sense. I think that makes sense.
Raiders are who I'm going with in this or that. Okay, let's go into the final this or that. This one's a little bit more fun. Speaking of the LA Rams, you know, both these teams lost in the NFC Championship game last year. The Los Angeles Rams, the Washington Commanders. They didn't make it to the Super Bowl. They were just shy. This or that. Who has a better season in 2025? The Rams, who made some nice additions, as I just mentioned, and the Commanders, who made really great additions, especially trading for Laramie Tunsil.
You go ahead. I'll let you go first on this one.
I'll go first.
I'm pretty confident in mine.
Although I said the Rams are going to be great and win the division, I'm going with the Washington Commanders. Daniels is an absolute stud at quarterback. And guess what? He did that as a rookie last year. He did that as a rookie last year. I mean, it was absolutely insane what he did at the position. Now you see what they have added in the free agency. I think that they've done some really nice ads in free agency. I mean, let me just cook. I mean, Washington has done some great things. Insane. Dallas has not been great. Philadelphia lost a lot of players, which, don't get me wrong, they have a good replacements. I don't think Philly's going to fall off. But if you add some great players like Larry Tunsil, that trade that came over, you brought in some other good players. Javon Kinlaw, I think, can be a good piece. I know a lot of people are iffy on him, if he's going to be a bust or not. I like it. I think Will Harris was a good piece as well. Bringing Bobby Wagner back, I think, is a super underrated signing. What he did to the defense last year. He's comfortable here. And you got to remember who's running this defense. It's not the defensive coordinator. Dan Quinn is a defensive mastermind, and he gets the ability to focus on that defense while Daniels just does his thing out there in year 2. And then, come on, and then I didn't even bring up Deebo Samuel. I didn't even bring up Deebo Samuel yet. So I have a feeling you're also picking this one. But yeah, I think the Commanders, I mean, if I'm picking today, I mean, this is fun. This is our first episode. Might as well have a fun one. If I'm picking today, the Washington Commanders are my pick for the NFC in the Super Bowl.
I don't even hate that. I really don't. They were my pick for the NFC East last year, and they didn't get that done. But I think it's been like 5 millennium since an NFC East champion repeated. So they're my pick this year. I'm just going to go back to it. Obviously, in the next 4 years, I'll be right. I think that they are. Jaden Daniels was mind-blowing what he did last year. And it was so fun to watch the way he played. And for them to run that back, I don't think it's a wild statement at all. I think the style that he plays is very complimentary of the way the NFL works right now. And then they made some huge moves. I mean, this list is enormous. So obviously the re-addition of Bobby Wagner, I do notice that. Bringing Zach Ertz back, that's another big one.
Hurts too, yeah.
Yeah, for Daniels. I think overall that this team is primed, and the division they're in, I think they're in a really good spot. Really, that's why it's not the Rams for me, because I do think that the Rams will be good. But at the end of the day, the Cardinals might actually be pretty solid this year, which we say that every year, but Marvin Harrison Jr. Really could turn it up. And then the 49ers, they'll find a way, I'm sure. And like we were just saying, like the Seattle Seahawks, if they made lateral moves, like I said, they are primed to kind of have that same 10-ish win season type of thing. So that's a challenging spot to be in. That division beats itself up a lot. And so I think if I had to pick between the two, we're really talking about two very good teams in the NFC, two probable Super Bowl contenders. Yeah. But I mean, how could you not? And the Commanders are such a lovable team too, because they've been just through so much with the poop pipes and everything with Dan Snyder. And it was like,
my God.
Now they've got it turned around. They got this logo. We're getting behind it. They're winning. Hail Mary against the Bears. Let's go. This is a fun team to root for. And so I am picking them partially for that reason. And also Ben Nickel, Iowa State's super athletic special teams guy, signed there last year. So kept my eyes on them. But
you're going, 3 years ago, you would never say that Washington's a fun team to root for.
I know.
Never.
That's what makes it so fun.
And that's all because of Snyder, right? This new ownership group has definitely changed what we thought about Washington. Magic Johnson and the rest of the ownership group has brought the magic back to Washington. It really has. It's been super impressive to watch. Obviously, Daniels, them hitting on the quarterback right off the bat is huge. We'd be thinking completely different if they would have not hit on their quarterback. Yeah. We've seen that for multiple years. Cleveland Browns are still trying to find their quarterback for since Bernie Kosar? They're having a hard time.
Yeah.
They're having a really hard time with that. So, yeah, regardless, this is going to be a fun NFL season. I'm super excited for what's to come on this show as well, because we have plenty more to come for you every single day on the 32 Blueprint. We're going to be covering all 32 teams. We're going to dig more into NFL free agency. We're digging into the NFL draft. It's not going to be just this show. We're going to be bringing you more content on the channel. So be sure to hit subscribe. We got plenty of more coming at you just every single day.
Forever.
So forever. Yeah. We're not going anywhere anytime soon. We're not going away. We are here.
This is where we're at.
That's it.
You know what they say? Be where your feet are. That's what they say in the NFL. So that's what we're doing. Look at our feet.
We have to find a way to maybe change the background and maybe get rid of that Patriots flag, though. So
no.
All right. Fine. All right. We'll see you back here tomorrow for
flag.
What flag? What flag? Maybe a Commanders flag.
Yeah, that's
bring
what
the
I'm
magic.
Thinking. That's what I'm kind of thinking. That's what. Hey,
Commanders Rams NFC Championship. Would you like that?
Yeah, I would love that. I would.
I think that'd be fun.
I can't think of a better team. Maybe the Bears, if they snuck in there, that'd be cool, I guess. But
what if we had the Bills Lions or Bills Vikings Super Bowl? That would be guarantee a first time Super Bowl winner. That'd be pretty fun too.
Bills Vikings with Aaron Rodgers on the Vikings.
Power would have to go out in the first quarter because Aaron Rodgers would need darkness.
Yes.
For his first, yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I don't know where they're playing it. Is there a beach where they're playing the Super Bowl this?
Mexico City is probably. I don't know where is the Super Bowl this year? Where is the Super Bowl?
I think it's in San Fran. I think it's at Levi's.
Okay. All right.
So there is a beach.
Hey, wait a minute. Aaron Rodgers went to Cal. Is it really in San Francisco?
I believe it is.
Are we talking the prophecy right now?
They had the Golden Gate Bridge in the logo, so I'm pretty sure it's in San Fran.
It is. You're right. It's in Santa Clara. Wow. Okay, all right. Well, it's not going to be the 49ers because they took a step back. Brock Purdy's about to get paid.
Yes.
But maybe the Northern Cal kid against another Northern Cal kid from Firebaugh, California. Bills and wherever Rodgers goes, Bills and Giants. That's it.
Oh my, that would be crazy. That would be crazy. If Aaron Rodgers took the Giants to the Super Bowl next year, there's an argument for him versus Brady. That's the amount of turnaround that would. I mean, that wouldn't even be possible. Are you kidding me?
Clip it.
Chat clip that. No, that's
all right, guys. We'll talk to you. We'll
impossible.
talk to you next episode. Take care.